thank you so much again for joining me on this channel. As always, I'm very grateful for all your previous views, likes and subscriptions. I was going through the data banks and I realised that for a long time I haven't done anything on religion and movies. So I thought I'd set that straight today. If you're new to the channel or haven't watched any of my videos for a long time, what we do is very simple. I take some movies or a movie and just explore some of the religious and philosophical ideas just to get us thinking and to see where it takes us. A little warning, you'll probably notice that in the written piece that introduces the video, I don't actually review the films. What I do is actually talk about some of the themes, the storylines and very significant plot points. I've listed the films I'm going to be talking about, so if you don't want to know what the movies are in terms of their ideas, and you really don't like spoilers, even little ones, then you might want to stop watching, which probably makes me the first YouTuber in history to not recommend their own channel. And you might want to then watch the movies before you watch this. It's entirely up to you, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. So I thought we'd look at Messiah figures, and the first thing I did is that I went to everybody's favourite search engine, Google. Other search engines are available, but they're not as good, and looked at the word Messiah. What does it mean? Well, it comes from a Jewish word called Mashiach, and again, you know my pronunciation by now is terrible. I apologise. And it means someone who is anointed, someone who is specially chosen for something. And the whole ritual would be performed with a blessing and being anointed. That means placed on your body with some oil. It's a ritual that still happens today in the British royal family. When the new monarch has their coronation, they're actually anointed by the leading clergy in the Church of England, whoever the current Archbishop of Canterbury is. And in the Jewish faith, it symbolised someone who was going to do something special, maybe the royal family or a prophet. Prophet is a messenger from God. But what I find fascinating is when religion comes into everyday language and the everyday lives that we lead. And the word Messiah is often used now to describe a great leader, someone who's inspiring, someone who's going to shake the foundations of a mundane lifestyle and bring about radical change. And we might talk about someone being a Messiah-like figure. And for this video, I want to explore some Messiah-like figures, mainly from the Christian tradition. In the world of cinema. So the first movie we're going to look at, which seems a slightly left field choice, I admit, is E.T the Extra Terrestrial from 1982, directed by Steven Spielberg. He's often called it his most personal film. I think one of the reasons is because it focuses on a family of four, a mum and three children who've been affected by divorce. And if you look at Steven Spielberg's movies, many of them have that theme of dealing with absentee fathers. So Catch Me If You Can, Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. And in this particular movie, the young boy Elliot, the middle child, his life is completely turned around, and everyone else's, with the arrival of E.T, an alien whose spaceship crash lands on Earth. And what's interesting is that, first of all, he's E.T, a stranger who comes down and just appears literally out of nowhere. But some of the things that E.T does has Messiah-like qualities. So there's a particular scene where Elliot injures himself and E.T heals him with that now ubiquitous gluing, don't think it's gluing, that would not have made the script, glowing finger. And it's a really nice sequence. And we think about how Jesus, for example, in the Gospels is recorded, according to Christians, of actually healing people. But then E.T and Elliot's life become more and more intertwined, and they have this almost symbiotic relationship. And one of the things that's very powerful is how both E.T and Elliot get sick. And it's a real shift in tone for the movie. If you like, the bad people, the dangerous people are the adults. And they take E.T and Elliot away. They sort of start quarantining them. And E.T gets very poorly and very sick. And so does Elliot. And in order to save Elliot, E.T, if you like, disconnects himself symbiotically from Elliot, and of course he passes away. It's a real tearjerker. And you think, well, what will happen next? Well, of course, there's a more than happy ending, because E.T. comes back to life. But just think about that imagery for a moment. This idea of a Messiah figure sacrificing themselves to save others. And there is a really startling image. On the left here, we have E.T. He's coming out the back of the medical vehicle. There's dry ice everywhere. He's wearing a plastic shroud, and you can see he's got that bright red beating heart. He is back from the dead. He is resurrected. Look on the right. There's an image there of Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, which is a very famous icon in the Christian tradition, in the Roman Catholic faith. And again, you have a shroud and you have a beating heart. Jesus is back from the dead. E.T. is back from the dead. And of course, the imagery continues even more, where in the end, of course, E.T. ascends back up in his spaceship, and Jesus ascends into heaven. I know it sounds really corny. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but just think about how powerful this imagery is. And what I love about movies is how so often there are these very big religious themes. So let's have a look at another messianic character, and Superman. Depending on your age and who you grew up with, Superman to you is either Christopher Reeve, Brandon Routh, or indeed Henry Cavill. And what we'll do is that we'll take each one of these supermen, and we'll look at one of their movies and just see how a messianic character is shown and reflected. We'll go back to 1978 with Richard Donner's Superman, and I think it's remembering that Superman has very significant roots in terms of a Jewish heritage. His creators, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, were Jewish immigrants, and they were living in New York. And if you look at the Superman origin story, of course, Superman is an alien, not just in the sense of, coming from another planet, but he's a stranger in brand new surroundings. And that is something that the immigrant community often experience, isn't it? When you go from one place to another, you're in an entirely new place. And it's almost as though Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster were trying to capture that in some way. And at the start of Superman, there's a brilliant sequence where Marlon Brando plays Superman's dad. Did it for like $1 million for like 3 minutes work. So it was a very good payday for him. And they place Superman's mum and dad, Superman in a little capsule, a little basket, as it were, for safety, and he's sent away into the realms of space to be adopted by another family. And you can see, if you like, the Moses story here. Think about how in the book of Exodus, Moses is in danger. He's placed in a basket, off to safety, and of course he is adopted by a new family. And there's a very clear parallel going on there. Let's move on to the mid-noughties and Brandon Routh's Superman. And the imagery here of a Messiah continues. It's a nice little link as well, because despite the fact that Marlon Brando had been dead for a few years, using the magic of CGI, they bring him back to life. And there's a quote in the movie by Jor-El, Superman's father: "You will see my life through your eyes, as your life will be seen through mine. Your son becomes the father," my apologies, the son becomes the father, and the father the son. And what we have there is a little pointer towards that Christian idea of Jesus being the Son of God, and the Father being connected to Jesus, the whole idea of the Trinity, the whole idea of Jesus being God in fully human form, God being there and present and walking among human beings. And it's a very clear idea. And even in some of the action sequences in the movie, one of my favourite action sequences, actually it's one of my favourite action sequences in a lot of, if you talk about in the history of cinema, is when Superman has to rescue a plane that's crashing and hurtling towards the ground, and you have him appearing, and you have this extraordinary kind of angelic music, heavenly choir score as he's flying through to rescue everybody. And it's a real reminder of those sort of godlike powers that he has. Even later on in the movie, where he's fighting Lex Luthor, as played by Kevin Spacey, there's a moment where he's stabbed in the side with some kryptonite, and that's a reminder of when Jesus is stabbed in the side when he's on the cross. So all these little clues. Remember that a movie is a director's medium. The director wants us to see certain things, and it's incredibly deliberate. So we move on to our third Superman, cinematic Superman at the moment, which is of course Henry Cavill, and in his first outing as Superman in 2013 he played the Man of Steel. Zack Snyder cranks up the Messiah imagery all the way up to 11, and we have a sequence where there is Superman, he's in a spaceship, he's got to rescue Lois Lane, and his father, played by Russell Crowe, through a hologram, says, look, you can rescue them, you can save all of them, implying he can save the whole of humanity. And as he exits the spaceship, there he floats, his arms outstretched in a Christ-like position. You have a glowing light, and yet again you have a heavenly choir. It's layered on very, very thick, the Messiah-like imagery, and to be honest, it's not very subtle, but it is there. And there's even a sequence where in the movie where he's chatting to a priest, and his age is mentioned as well, Superman, of being as Clark Kent as being 33 years old, which in the Christian faith is roughly the age that Jesus would have been crucified. So we'll see what happens, who the next actor will be to play Superman, but whoever that is, have a look out and see if they carry on with these messianic themes. And finally, The Shawshank Redemption, directed by Frank Darabont, from 1994. The movie, a 2-hour 40-minute prison epic set in the 1930s, doesn't exactly sound particularly enticing. However, it became one of the most loved films of all time, partly through video rental. And video rental, for those of you who don't know, was a system whereby you would go to a shop, a big building like Blockbuster Video. You would then pick the video cassette off the shelf. You would then pay someone £3 or £4 to keep it for 2 or 3 nights. You would take it home, you would watch it, and then you would go back to the store and return it. My gosh, how antiquated it seems. But it was a huge hit through home viewing. And based on a short novel by Stephen King. And look at the themes that are going on here. Andy Dufresne, played by Tim Robbins, is an innocent man who is sent to prison. And we've heard that idea before, haven't we? Of someone innocent being punished for crimes they did not commit. He's accused of murdering his wife. We know he is utterly innocent, but due to a miscarriage of justice, okay, he is sent down for life at the Shawshank prison. And he befriends Morgan Freeman's character, Red. But whilst he's there in the prison, Andy has an amazing effect. He gets the library going again. And he also helps a young man gain qualifications. But he also helps to do tax returns. He's a former accountant for the prison guards. And he manages to convince one of the prison guards that he can do this for them as he's out as part of a work gang and they're tarring a roof. And the prison guard says, what do you want out of this? If you're going to help me do my taxes and everybody else so we don't have to pay any more money, what do you want? And he just simply asks for some beer, a bottle of beer for each man. And there's a really interesting sequence where they're sitting on top of this roof, his little gang, drinking beer. And if you count up the number of prisoners there, it's the same number of people who would be present at the Last Supper of Jesus. Now that seems like quite a stretch, and maybe it is a bit of a stretch, but there's something about that, about how there he is enjoying his freedom with everybody else. And as our narrator Morgan Freeman says, who plays the character Red, maybe just wanted to feel normal again. And it is like a sort of a secular Last Supper. And Andy, of course, becomes such an important figure in the life of the prison. He does all the accounts and helps the prison staff avoid paying tax, but he, of course, eventually he escapes. And weirdly enough, this image is actually on the poster, or some of the movie posters, so it's a bit of a spoiler. But what happens is he's there in his prison cell. Think of it like a stone tomb, and he escapes. I think how Jesus was there in the stone tomb, and he escapes, is resurrected. And one of the most memorable shots in the movie is here of Andy Dufresne standing here in the rain, if you like, being baptized. He's got his redemption. He's looking up. God's looking down at him. You could say the way the camera is hoisted up, he's got his arms outstretched in that Christ-like position. Our innocent man is free. This Messiah-like figure who brought about positive change to the prison. And in the end, of course, he brings the entire corrupt prison system down. He's able to take away the evil characters, and particularly the warden, who is a sort of devil-like character, loosely based on Richard Nixon. It really is a very powerful sequence, and it's been much loved in so many ways that actually in the film Coco from 2017 there is a little homage to it there. So all I want you to do, if you're able to, is not just to continue to enjoy movies, but also just think about where can you see these Messiah-like characters who are often innocent, characters who often seem to have powers or special powers, who can bring about change, who help to inspire people and are a power and a force for good, and often are involved in a form of self-sacrifice. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm very grateful for all your views, likes and subscriptions, but most importantly, enjoy your learning.